Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 96. Today I'm going to do another quick one, and I'm going to be talking about Mary Renault's 3-volume biographical fictional history of Alexander the Great. Okay, the first one is Fire from Heaven, The Persian Boy, and finally Funeral Games. Now you can get these in a single volume. I think it's called the Alexander Trilogy, released through Penguin, but I'm not sure if it's available still because it was like quite a long time ago. So Fire from Heaven, the first one, was written in 1969, 1972, and Funeral Games 1981. So Mary Renault was working on these for many, many years. And as a fictional biography, and obviously this is not a fictional biography in the sense that she's making total stuff up. No, she does follow the life of Alexander, and she gives him the appearance of a real person through multiple characters and through his entire life, from before he became the famous general, while he was the famous general, and post Alexander, his life and what happened to his empire when he passed away. Now, I was always under the impression that Alexander the Great murdered his father, Philip, and I don't know why, but I just always assumed that was a fact, but it's not. Alexander did not kill his father. He had troubles with his father, lots of political troubles and leadership troubles. But Mary Renault just writes this most brilliant, fascinating, well-written history that is just so engaging. It's just so well done. My favorite is The Persian Boy. And that's because the Persian Boy story, Alexander's life is told through this young boy whose parents are murdered in Persia, and he's sold into slavery, and then he's subsequently, as a young boy, pimped out as a prostitute to the local elites by the emperor, not by the emperor, by his owner, the person who bought him initially. He then becomes the lover of the Darius, I think his name is, and then after Darius falls, he becomes the lover of Alexander the Great. Now, I think in this version of the introduction by Sean Hewitt, or San, how do they say it? Sean, Sheen, Sian. Anyway, Sean Harriet, he sort of looks at this book in his introduction as a queer literature. And it probably is, but at the same time, it really doesn't matter because it just continues a great story told in an interesting and fascinating manner with so many characters, so many events, covering historical events, but again, in a fictional manner, because no one was in the tents, no one was on the battlefield, so to speak, telling the story as it happened. It's all through, obviously, very, very intense research, but the characters are real. The characters feel fleshy. They just have a presence. And I read them all one after the other, which I think is important in this case because it helps you keep track with some of the characters, because not all the characters make it through all 3 books, but obviously some of the characters do appear throughout the books. And it's important to know because it helps you understand Alexander's rise to fame and how this young boy led on by his mother to believe that he was godlike. And I think, I'm not sure if that's in the history, but in the fictional biography, we see a young boy who is his mind is melded between his dad's influence and his mother's influence, but his mother is sort of known as some kind of witch, and she basically tells him that he's the son of I think it's Achilles or Zeus or one of the two. And I think that in the book, it does frame Alexander's sort of bravery and bravado in battle, because he literally believes that he can't be killed, much like Achilles, who was dipped in the river Styx. And in a mythological way, Alexander the Great is kind of reliving a myth in the real world via a biographical fictional account of his life. So it's got multi-layers. And my favorite again is The Persian Boy. So well written. It's this sort of a fly on the wall sort of a narrative where the character tells you what's going on around him through the various political intrigues, the wars, the murders, the lovers, the madness, the insanity of too much power. And it does kind of give you the sense of that Alexander was definitely born to rule, but rule for a very short time. What's that saying? One crowded hour. And in a sense, Alexander did live that crowded hour, but he died probably too young to solidify a growing empire. His empire literally started to decay the second he died because of the infighting and all the madness that went along with his death, including the fact that his body was mummified by Egyptians, and that sort of spread the rumor because his body was kind of kept well preserved for over a year, while they built his sarcophagus and his tomb, which was carried to Egypt. And that all is also part of the story, the elephants in war, the battles by rivers, the savagery, the assassinations. Just a fascinating, well-written, highly entertaining history. And yes, it's what is combined. So we've got probably 400, 800, so maybe 1,000 pages. But well worth the effort. And if you can get the single volume, Mary Renault, Alexander the Trilogy, what's it called? Alexander the Trilogy. Oh, sorry, the Alexander Trilogy. Sorry for that. By Penguin. And again, I'm not sure if there's a new edition of that, because the edition that I saw online was pretty old, and I think the guy was charging over $300 for it. But anyway, these are all well bought from Amazon or your bookshops, because they're in such high demand since Mary wrote them, and they're a fascinating and brilliant look at Macedonian and Alexander the Great, and it really, really did bring that history alive for me. So beautiful book, so well written. And a fun read, entertaining, and like I said, 1, 2, 3, and highly recommended. And hopefully someone will see this and go, I'm going to give that a go. Or I just finished this brilliant bloody book called Between Two Fires by Christopher Bullman. Again, this is the Middle Ages, about the plague and about religion, and it's fucking brilliant. Just a great book. I also just finished Dean Koontz's famous book, Going Home in the Dark. It's okay. It's a bit of a satire, with some black humor. It sort of runs out of power towards the end, but not a bad film. Not a bad book, I should say. And I also finished Dean Koontz Watches. And so I've been reading a lot of books this year. So I'm up to, what am I just finished? So I'm up to 18 books in 2026. Obviously, months and days to go. And I'm reading Annie Bot Next by Sierra Greer. And I've heard a little bit about this book. It's about a companion robot, which is something I'm very interested in having, considering I'm a lonely guy. And anyway, cheers, 00. Boy, that's good. All right, thanks for joining me on BookMob, episode 96, and I'll see you soon for BookMob 97. Keep reading, buy books, borrow books, lend books, steal books. Just keep reading, because reading is fun, and I think in this day and age of digital madness, reading is a way to keep in touch with the flesh of being a human being. Thanks. Bye.